All the different ways the raid lockouts can work in ICC can be a bit confusing, so today I just want to take a few minutes to talk you through how it did work and how I think it's likely to work in Classic. If you didn't already know, we now actually have a date for the PTR for the next phase, and that's the 29th of August. We are still waiting on a full list of patch notes to accompany the PTR, which will likely come in the next few days. But we already know that Random Dungeon Finder is going to be part of the PTR, as well as other user interface improvements which were mentioned in the latest Community Council get-together. How the lockouts work in ICC can be quite confusing. TOGC actually adopted the ICC lockout system, but with things like limited attempts, potentially requiring Lich King normal to be able to access heroic bosses, and having to actually kill the last wing bosses on heroic to even access the Lich King heroic, it can all get a bit much. So let's just talk through how it's likely to work and what an attempt counter is, and all that good stuff. Well, TOGC actually adopted the ICC lockout system. So whilst we don't know at the moment whether you're going to have to kill Lich King on normal to be able to unlock heroic, because that's how it was back in the day, you had to have a single person in the raid group at least kill the Lich King on normal so heroic mode could be activated on other bosses. I don't really see that being the case in Classic. I think everything will just be open at once, because the whole gating system as well, back in the day where it wasn't available at launch, it was one wing at a time until everything was open. Then once you've killed the Lich King on normal, you can start progressing on heroic. Whilst I feel that that would slow everything down, and in a good way, I actually agree with gating this raid, I just don't see Blizzard doing it. Whether I think it's a good idea or a bad idea is kind of irrelevant. We've just got to look at what's been done historically, even with things like Sunwell, where that was gated initially as well. That was all open at launch, and I don't see ICC being any different. But like I said, TOGC adopted the ICC lockout system. So what this means is you can go in and you can do normal bosses and heroic bosses on both 10 and 25 man. But on each difficulty, you can only kill each boss once. So for example, in your 10 man, you could go in and you could do heroic Marrowgar, heroic Lady Death Whisper, heroic Gunship, heroic Saurfang, and then decide to clear the rest of the raid on normal. But this does go on a boss by boss basis. So this doesn't mean that you would be forced to finish the raid on normal. You could kill a couple more bosses on normal and then switch it back to heroic for a couple of others, and then back to normal for Lich King, for example. On both 10 and 25 man though, historically there was an attempt counter, and I do kind of feel that we will get the attempt counter this time round as well. Now the attempt counter is a shared attempt counter, so the only bosses that you need to kill on heroic to be able to access heroic Lich King is Professor Putricide, Blood Queen Lanafel, and Sindragosa. The attempt counter is shared between all of these bosses and the Lich King as well. Initially when it launched, you could only wipe 10 times on Professor Putricide heroic. That got raised to 15 when Blood Queen Lanafel was available, and then it continued to get raised until it actually reached 50. I believe the jump actually went from 25 to 50 very quickly, and that was mainly because of the lack of people that could actually kill the Lich King heroic with this attempt counter so low. This does mean if you wipe excessively on Professor Putricide, but you manage to get Blood Queen Lanafel and Sindragosa down fairly quickly, you've still reduced the amount of time that you can progress on Lich King heroic, but you can still kill him on normal, but heroic will be out of the window that reset. Don't get me wrong, Blizzard may launch it with no attempt counter, but considering that we got the hour-long lockout on Algalon, I kinda see him putting the attempt counter in ICC. Interestingly, and what is often forgotten or overlooked, is the attempt counter initially was for normal as well. So rather than just running out of attempts on heroic and then being able to kill the bosses on normal, the bosses would completely despawn. This would mean you'd lose all of the loot for that week from those bosses. That would actually make for some interesting decisions to be made during progress, because if you know you can get the Lich King down on normal, and maybe you know that it would only take 2 or 3 attempts max, then how many attempts can you actually afford to waste on progressing on the heroic Endwing bosses, because you might face the risk of 1 too many wipes on the Lich King and completely lose the loot from him for that week. I must admit, attempt counters and even timed events like Algalon have never actually been something that sits particularly well with me. In my opinion, if you can chuck your raid together and hammer away at a boss for hours and hours on end until you eventually get it down, then good on you. When it comes to shared attempts though across even normal bosses, what you need to remember is that when ICC was initially coming out in its gated stages, there was no access to heroic. So the counter being there on normal kind of made sense, because technically it was the hardest content currently available. With ICC likely going to launch with everything available including heroic, normal isn't the highest level of difficulty, so that attempt counter should only be relevant really for Heroic anyway. All of this will be made a lot clearer once we get a full breakdown of the patch notes, or even just diving into the PTR. My gut instinct is it will launch with all content available and a 50 attempt counter. This will give all levels of guilds plenty of leeway to be able to progress on all of these Heroic M-Wing bosses. Just remember, there is no way to fight the Lich King on Heroic though without doing Putricide, Blood Queen Lanafel and Sindragosa on Heroic. So let's say you struggle with attempts on Putricide, you can't bypass that to go and do the other two and head straight to the Lich King because the Lich King just won't be there. Now, admittedly, some of this is obviously speculation because we have got no official confirmation on how the raid is going to be launched, but it's good that you're armed with the information so you know how it is likely to work and how it did work back in the day. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.